Remember how NHS Fife in Scotland is putting one of their nurses, Sandy Peggy, through an employment tribunal because she's been accused of misconduct for not wanting to share a changing room with a male member of staff who says that he's a woman? Well, it turns out, according to the Equalities and Human Rights Commission, that NHS Fife did not uphold its legal duties to its female members of staff before finalising its policy of allowing trans staff to access female changing facilities. And when they were asked to produce their equalities impact statement prior to allowing this to happen, when they were asked if they had done one, their one word reply was no. And so it turns out that the Equalities and Human Rights Commission has had to write to NHS 5 to remind them that they have a legal obligation to uphold the rights of their female members of staff too. And even better, the EHRC are going to be visiting the SNP's Health Secretary, Neil Gray, over forthcoming NHS Scotland guidance on transgender issues, which is fantastic because we all know that the Scottish government is just an absolute mess when it comes to this. Thank you so much, Nicola Sturgeon, for basically making this woman's life and many other women's lives very difficult because they now cannot say no to men who want to come into their spaces. Let's just have a watch of a interaction between First Minister of Scotland, John Swinney, and the leader of the opposition, Russell Finlay.
Service to the NHS faces the sack for her concerns about a man using a women's changing room. The Employment Tribunal will rule in due course, but there's absolutely no reason why MSPs cannot discuss the wider issues. Women's spaces must be for women and girls. So does John Swinney agree that every woman in Scotland should be entitled to this and to say this without losing their job?
First Minister.
So before I answer Russell Finlay's question, I just want to take this opportunity to place on record the fact that on Monday I will attend a commemoration service in Edinburgh to mark the 3rd anniversary of the illegal invasion of Ukraine. And I am certain when I go to that, I will go there with the wholehearted support of every member of this Parliament who is repulsed by the invasion of Ukraine by Russia and stands in solidarity with the people of Ukraine. I have, of course, been paying very close attention to the issues raised by Mr Finlay and by Conservative members in Parliament, and the Government has taken the view that we cannot comment on the ongoing proceedings that Mr Finlay raises. The reason for that is set out in Section 1 of the Judiciary and Courts Scotland Act 2008, which at Section 1, under the title of Guaranteed of Continued Judicial Independence, it says that the following persons must uphold the continued independence of the judiciary: A, the First Minister; B, the Lord Advocate; C, the Scottish Ministers; D, members of the Scottish Parliament. It goes on at subsection 2 to say in particular, the First Minister, the Lord Advocate and the Scottish Ministers must not seek to influence judicial...
He will do anything to not address the question.
Now, if I was to comment on this case, I'd be in danger of breaking the law. And I believe in the rule of law, and nobody will persuade me to break the rule of law in this Parliament. No questioning from Mr Finlay, no barracking, no heckling, nothing will stop me from protecting the right to ensure that the law is upheld in this country. The guidance that is in place in relation to the issues that Mr Finlay raises on a general level explains as follows. The Equality Act 2010 does allow the provision to exclude a trans person from single or separate sex facilities. These kinds of decisions must be made on a case-by-case basis. Managers must balance the needs of the trans person to use this facility against the needs of other members of staff. They should also consider if other staff members will experience any disadvantage if the trans person is allowed to use the facilities. That is the position and guidance supported by law, and I hope that answers Mr Finlay's question.
Yeah. Russell Finlay.
I mean, it obviously doesn't answer Finlay's question, but the fact is that the First Minister of Scotland cannot say whether he thinks it's right or wrong for a man to enter a woman's space. He simply regurgitates some very confusing words in the Equality Act, which we don't even know what they refer to. We're waiting for the ruling from the Supreme Court for Women Scotland's appeal to decide for what sex it actually refers to in the Equalities Act, whether women do have the right to exclude men, regardless of their gender identity. Let's just have a look at Russell Finley's response here.
Thank you. I also look forward to attending the memorial service on Monday, and I wholeheartedly agree with the First Minister's comments in that regard. We can indeed talk about the generalities of this case, despite the First Minister's selective legal interpretations. The SNP Health Secretary was warned directly last year about the NHS ignoring women's fundamental rights under the Equality Act, but he did nothing about it. And just weeks ago, Scotland's NHS published what it describes as a gender transitioning guide. This official document confirms that women's rights to single-sex spaces are not protected in the NHS. But the document has now disappeared from the NHS website. The page appears to have been deleted. So has this guidance been scrapped? And if it has not, will John Swinney do so?
First Minister.
I don't think it's good enough for Russell Finley to say that I've selectively expressed the basis of the position that I take, that I cannot comment on live legal proceedings, because the law requires me not to do so. And if Russell Finley cannot respect that and accept that, then I think the Conservative Party is in a pretty dismal place.
So basically, this exchange goes on for about 10 minutes where John Swinney refuses to say anything about whether he thinks that a man should be able to go into a female space, pretending that Russell Finley was asking him directly about this case rather than asking him more generally, should women have access to their own spaces? So I, for one, very much welcome the intervention of the Equalities and Human Rights Commission. I hope that they have a very stern word with the SNP Health Secretary, because clearly they need it. The fact they've already been warned once before last year about their need or their obligation to protect women's rights, and they still have done nothing about it, and they've been warned for the second time. Will this be the beginning of the end of Scotland's insane trans policies, anti-women policies? Hopefully, I'm not sure. Thanks for watching. I'm Connie Shaw. Please subscribe to Reasoned UK if you haven't already, and I'll see you next time.